Hey everyone, and welcome to this high-yield explainer charting the absolute game changer that is the timeline of human innovation. I'm your tutor today, and I've put on my scriptwriter hat to meticulously structure this review specifically for your exam prep. We're going to cut right through the noise and focus entirely on the highly testable facts you actually need to know. We're talking everything from the biological leaps of our earliest ancestors right up to the massive technological revolutions that literally forged empires. So grab your notes, get comfortable, and let's jump right in. Here's our quick agenda. We'll be hitting human evolution, the four stone ages, the massive shift that was fire and farming, the Bronze Age, and we'll wrap up with the Iron Age revolution. All right, starting at square one, we've got to clearly define evolution. For your exams, the key phrase to remember is that this is a gradual and continuous process. As Charles Darwin famously theorized, this whole thing is driven by natural selection. Basically, organisms that happen to adapt well to changing environments survive, and then they pass those winning, advantageous traits right on down to their offspring. Okay, section one. Let's look at human evolution and our early hominin ancestors. Now listen up, because test makers absolutely love to ask who invented what. There are four main hominin types you need to have memorized. First, Homo habilis. They were the very first to actually make and use stone tools. Then comes Homo erectus, the upright man, who completely changed the game by controlling fire. Next, the Neanderthals stepped it up by building shelters. And finally, Homo sapiens, that's the thinking man, which happens to be our own surviving species today. And just a quick reminder, everything we know about these stages, it comes straight from paleontology, the study of fossils. These remains, which are preserved through natural processes over millions of years, are basically the puzzle pieces archaeologists use to put this entire timeline together. Moving right along to section two, the four stone ages. You absolutely must know the strict chronological order of these divisions. It kicks off with the Paleolithic, or Old Stone Age, which is all about heavy hand axes. Then we move into the Mesolithic with smaller, sharper arrows. That naturally evolves into the super polished, fine tools of the Neolithic Age. Finally, we hit a highly testable transition period called the Chalcolithic Age. This is where early humans started mixing stone with the very first metal ever used, copper. The leap in technology here is honestly staggering. Notice how those heavy, really clunky early tools evolved into highly polished, incredibly thin, and deadly sharp points. I mean, think about it. With those sharper tools, digging, hunting, and cutting meat suddenly became dramatically more efficient. Now, during this extended period, humans were entirely nomadic hunter-gatherers. They followed wild herds and hid out in caves to escape the cold and predators. And while hiding out, they created these amazing pictographs using natural mineral colors. A classic example you should jot down is the famous rock painting at Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh, India. It's a perfect snapshot of the exact animals they were hunting. All right, section 3. This is where things get really interesting. Fire, farming, and settlements. Pay close attention here because this sequence is highly testable. It literally all started with someone noticing that fallen seeds grew into new plants. But because farming means you have to sit around and wait for crops to grow, early humans finally had to stop wandering. They built small huts, those huts turned into villages, and crucially, farming created a surplus. They suddenly had more food than they could eat. So what did they do? They started exchanging that surplus with other villages, giving birth to the entire concept of trade. And as a direct result of staying put in one place, they had to develop new skills. They started making clay pots simply because they desperately needed a way to store all that extra grain. Plus, this is when animal domestication really kicks off. Dogs were tamed to guard homes and help out with hunting, while sheep and goats were kept around so they'd have a steady, reliable supply of milk, meat, wool, and skins. On to section 4, the Bronze Age transition. The major takeaway for your exam here is distinguishing between these two metals. So copper was the very first metal discovered, right? But it was actually pretty soft. Humans figured out that if you mix copper with a bit of tin, you create an alloy called bronze. And bronze was just vastly stronger than copper alone, which quickly led to much better weapons, sturdier tools, and even intricate statues. And finally, section 5, the Iron Age Revolution. The Iron Age is exactly what it sounds like on the tin. It's the era when iron tools and weapons completely replaced those weaker copper and bronze ones. Iron is fundamentally harder and stronger than literally anything humans had ever used before, and it completely transformed both agriculture and warfare. Okay, I love this next fact, and it is highly testable trivia. Before humans ever learned how to mine iron from the earth, they literally harvested their first iron from outer space. No joke, the earliest known sources of iron used by humans were fallen meteorites. In fact, archaeologists have actually found daggers belonging to ancient kings that were forged straight from meteorite iron. How cool is that? Eventually, though, around 5000 BC over in the Middle East, humans mastered a super important process called smelting. Smelting is just extracting metal directly from mineral rock using heat. Once they could smelt iron right out of the earth, they could mass produce it, spreading this vital tech across Egypt, Greece, Africa, and Asia. Now, armed with heavy iron axes, humans could easily chop down thick forests to clear massive amounts of land for farming. They also used heavy iron plows to dig super deep into hard soil. Because farming got so incredibly efficient, they produced massive crop yields, which directly caused early towns and cities to just explode in size and population. And this sparked a massive domino effect. Better iron tools meant you spent way less time struggling just to grow food. All that new spare time got poured into crafts, things like sewing, jewelry making, and pottery. In India, this showed up as the painted grayware culture, known for its fine pottery with black geometric patterns. On top of that, the massive boom in trade meant exchanging grain just wasn't cutting it anymore. That directly led to the invention of the earliest coins, which were actually made of iron before they transitioned to silver and gold. But of course, there's always a flip side, right? Iron also meant deadlier swords, spears, and arrowheads. Wars became super common and brutally intense. To protect themselves from rival tribes swinging iron weapons, people had to start building massive hill forts. Situated on hilltops with towering, incredibly thick walls, these basically acted as highly defensive small towns. These heavy iron weapons made kings incredibly powerful, letting them easily conquer neighbors who were stuck using softer metals. While early civilizations like the Indus Valley and the Egyptians existed way before this era, it was the raw power of iron-based agriculture and brutal iron warfare that fueled the really rapid, aggressive expansion of later massive civilizations. We're talking, of course, about the mighty Greek and Roman empires. Let's do a quick recap of our high-yield syllabus today. We traced the timeline through human evolution, the four stone ages, the dawn of fire and farming, the Bronze Age, and the world-changing Iron Age revolution. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought about our own future to chew on. As you hit the books and prep for your exams, just remember, history is a lot more than just memorizing dates. It is the continuous, epic story of human innovation. Master these key steps, and you are absolutely going to ace your test. Good luck studying and keep exploring.